High-tech companies really are into the aspect of diversity. And one part of diversity that they found is really important is multi-generational teams. Not just multiracial or multi-ethnic, but actually multi-generational. So the people with more experience have a different perspective on working on solving problems, situations. Younger people come at something sometimes even very quickly, but they don't have the background that the older workers are bringing to them.
Hello, and welcome to Not Born Yesterday, a podcast dedicated to older adults and the challenges and joys of aging. Not Born Yesterday is about playing, working, loving, laughing, and enjoying the possibilities and opportunities of later years. I'm Miriam Goodman, your co-host. Not Born Yesterday examines the problems and solutions of growing older today. We bring you the wisdom and voices of experts in the field of aging and offer tips on how to feel your best, use your lifetime skills and experience, and make the coming months and years as fulfilling as possible. Along the way, we hope you will share your thoughts and concerns about being older and let us know how we can help.
Hello, I'm your co-host, Lynn Winter-Gross. Not Born Yesterday is brought to you by Next Village SF. Next Village SF is a local nonprofit providing older adults in the Northeast neighborhood of San Francisco with support to help age in place, as well as offering cultural, educational, and social activities that keep people connected and engaged with the community and with each other.
At Not Born Yesterday, we don't have to look very far to see so many examples of ageism, which is discrimination against people because of their age. Beyond the ageism in media and in advertising, one of the most common places we see the effects of ageism is in the workplace. It used to be that at age 70 you were considered too old to be of value. Now that stereotype sometimes drops down to 50-year-olds.
Our guest today is very familiar with problems older adults have experienced, and he's helped many find new jobs at companies that fit their interests. David Robbins is a senior instructor at the Job Search Accelerator program and career advisor at the Jewish Vocational Service in San Francisco. He currently gives presentations at the San Francisco Public Library Career Center on overcoming ageism in the workplace. Whether you're looking for work yourself or have friends or adult children in the workforce, David has a lot of advice for anyone still working or interested in returning to work or changing careers. Welcome to Not Born Yesterday, David.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
In a recent survey, David, by AARP, 3/4 of older workers say they experience age discrimination at work. What does that exactly mean?
Now, I have to admit, there is ageism. I mean, age discrimination is real. It happens. We know about it. We know that there are laws against it. We know from 1967 up through 2009 when I went to the Supreme Court. We know that ageism exists, but when people tell me that they're not getting a job because of their age, that's when we really have to get to work on what are they doing that's saying to the prospective employer, I'm older, or even I'm too old for this job, or I'm not going to fit into your company. So there has to be a way to stop giving that message, which is what the people who get hired are doing properly. So that's where we really try to work one-on-one with people, or in a class like we do with the Job Search Accelerator program.
So when adults say that they're having trouble finding a job, sometimes, aside from the fact that you think they're doing something, there must be a lot of misinformation about older workers. Are there some myths that you've encountered?
Absolutely. And the myths are strong, and they've been around for a long time, because when I first started working on this, we talked about the stereotypes for 50-plus workers. And the first one that comes up, even back more than 10 years ago, that older workers are technologically inept. They can't do this. Now, we know that that's not true, because I'm an older worker myself, and we've all had computers, and we've been using computers for probably over 30 years. So I will admit, I've worked with clients one-on-one who are, in fact, not so much technologically inept, but they're actually afraid of technology. So some of that is actually true, and therefore the stereotype runs across the gamut of everybody who's over 50. In fact, it is just a stereotype, just as any other ism, there are stereotypes. Another stereotype that we find is that the thought is if this person gets hired, they're not going to stay very long because they only want a job for a few years and then they're going to retire. Again, not necessarily true because many people have already, over 50, have already retired. There are people in their 60s and 70s that have already retired, but now they're trying to get back into the workforce. So thinking that they're going to be only staying on for a few years is not really true. In fact, according to the statistics, most senior workers, older workers, stay on the job longer than younger workers. And right now, I think about every 2 or 3 years, a younger worker is going to look for a new job. They want to move around. They want to get experience in lots of different companies. An older worker usually wants to find the place where they can be adding value, work with a real good group, and stay there as long as they can continue to add value.
Another myth is that older workers are taking jobs away from younger workers, that they're blocking younger workers' paths.
Once again, we come up to that little bit of a dichotomy. So older workers can't get hired because of younger workers, and younger workers are saying we can't get hired because of older workers. It is true that workers are staying on the job longer than they used to. I mean, 65 was a standard. That was it. You were out of your company at age 65. That's not happening anymore. But nobody left their job usually at 50. And the people who are 50 are talking about not being able to get jobs because they can't get into the workforce. So again, I actually haven't seen that as a stereotype. I've seen it more as a complaint by younger workers. And once again, I want to know, what are you doing to get that job? Because if they're posting a job that's available, they're not posting a job if the job is already filled by an older worker. So when we start looking at the grand scheme of things, America-wide, we have to start looking at some realities there.
It seems to me there were times when I was looking for a job and I was over 50, people would say, well, you're overqualified. Do people hear that a lot?
Absolutely, which is really just code for we don't want someone your age. If somebody was overqualified, I would try to grab them up, because overqualified means they can not only do the job I want them to do, but they're also going to be able to add value around the job I'm trying to get them to do. So that leads again to the point of, if they're overqualified, they're not going to stay very long. And we know that stereotype has already been debunked because they will stay longer.
So one of the advantages you mentioned is the staying power and the adding value. Are there other things that an older worker can stress to show that they're valuable? Absolutely.
And again, it leads to another stereotype, which is that older workers are reluctant to learn new things or unable to learn new things. And the best way to overcome that stereotype is to start learning new things. So there are so many classes available. There are so many programs that are even offered free through local community colleges, universities, and then online with LinkedIn Learning and Coursera, so many other programs out there, even YouTube, where if you could show that you're taking classes, that you're keeping your skills up to date. Because one of the issues, which is not a stereotype, but a real issue, is that older workers sometimes are not showing that they have newer versions of their skills. Even if you're in the middle of a class, what it says to the employer, this person has a learner's mindset. And that's really what they're looking for in younger workers and in older workers, that you're still going to be a learner, and that overcomes that stereotype.
So I was talking to an older adult this morning, and she said, I don't even know what my skills are. How do you know what your skills are and sell your skills?
Then you have the process of doing some self-analysis to identify what your skills are. So what we do is ask people to put together a career narrative. What was your first job, and what did you do after that, and what did you do after that? And then look at each job and then identify what were the skills that you had in each of those jobs? And as you come more current in more recent jobs, you could start seeing that you have so many skills. One thing that's happening more and more in the workplace, in the hiring model, is that companies are looking for what we call soft skills. I know that there's now debate on, they're not really soft, they're really important skills, but the idea of communicating, leadership, collaborating, those are the skills that people are looking for. And people think, well, I don't have skills. Oh, yes, but I worked on a team. I led a team. I worked for the PTA and I was the PTA president. We raised $50,000 each year. Well, those are all incredible skills. So it doesn't have to be skills only from the workforce, paid job experience. Your skills can come from all the different things you've done in your life that helped you become successful as you move through your life.
Are there certain industries or companies that are more friendly to older adults?
Well, we used to say, kind of stay away from the tech companies because they only want younger workers. Actually, what's happening is many companies, and I recommend to anyone who's really interested to do a Google search on the word returnships. Many companies are actually promoting returnships. Similar to an internship, they're asking for people who have, in some of the companies that we've worked with at JVS, they're looking for people who have actually been out of the paid workforce for at least 2 years, but want to get back into the workforce. And they're offering a returnship similar to an internship where you're going to come on board, you're going to use your prior skills and learn new skills. And then eventually you'll either be able to apply for a full-time job in that company or actually move to any other company.
I haven't heard that phrase before, returnship.
About a year ago, I started seeing it at JVS. And now when I did a Google search on returnships, I find a number of companies, and they include the high-tech companies, because high-tech companies really are into the aspect of diversity. And one part of diversity that they found is really important is multi-generational teams. Not just multiracial or multi-ethnic, but actually multi-generational. So the people with more experience have a different perspective on working on solving problems, situations. Younger people come at something sometimes even very quickly, but they don't have the background that the older workers are bringing to the workforce. So returnships are a really important way for companies to start bringing in that multi-generational workforce.
So besides looking for returnships on Google, where else should older workers look for jobs? What other places should they go to find places that would be interested in helping them or skilling up or learning new careers?
Well, I think that, other than returnships and internships, and then, through nonprofit organizations that might help people, companies are not in the business of trying to help you get a job. Companies are in the business of finding the best worker for them to continue to grow their organization. So if I can turn the question around a little bit, it's not so much, where can I find the companies, but where can I find out where I might fit the best? And that has to do with research. And The best way to research is through networking. So I did just a different search for some of the presentations I've been making. And I went to the Muse, which has a lot of information on job search. I went to AARP because they have a whole jobs area. And I went to even US News and World Report. And when we think about, if I put all of those tips together, the key factors that stood out were networking, learning how to put together a customized, targeted resume to the job that you're actually applying to, rather than talking about, look at all the great things I've done. What can I do for you, Mr. or Ms. Employee? To show you have a learner's mind and to really know what the hiring manager is looking for. And the best way really is to network into companies where somebody is actually going to walk your resume into an employer.
David, thank you. I assume that also goes if you want to go, also applies if you want to go back for a part-time job and if you want to get back into the workforce where you haven't worked for a while. There's so many challenges, David, and you've given us a lot of good ideas and good resources on how to handle the issue of age, and is it really an issue of ageism, and how to sell yourself and sell your skills and have confidence in what you've already done. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Scott, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
In our News You Can Use segment today, we want you to think about something that affects many of us, hearing loss. While we're so fortunate that hearing aids actually exist, too many older adults find excuses to not wear these tiny miracles. And you know who you are. If your answer is so what, you might be surprised to learn that hearing loss is really a health hazard. According to a recent article in the New York Times, 2/3 of people over 70 have clinically relevant hearing loss. This can increase the risk of cognitive decline, dementia, falls, social isolation, depression, and anxiety. And believe it or not, fewer than 20% of people who need hearing aids currently use them.
Medicare doesn't allow for hearing aids, and I would love to have been in the room when the lobbyists involved in writing that Medicare legislation almost 60 years ago tried to rationalize the exclusion. If you are one of the millions still waiting for a low-cost alternative to traditional hearing aids, Congress did pass a law in 2017 that would allow over-the-counter hearing aids for mild or moderate hearing loss. However, due to the pandemic, the FDA missed its deadline for publishing the rules. President Biden recently issued an executive order to speed up the process, so we may be hearing about this soon.
When the new generation of hearing aids become available, there will surely be many choices. But until then, if you need hearing aids or already have them stuffed in a drawer somewhere, please wear them. Once again, you know who you are. Your family and your friends will appreciate it.
That's our podcast for today. Our thanks to David Robbins for his insight and advice about ageism in the workplace. You can learn about Next Village SF by going to their website, nextvillagesf.org. Our theme music was from Hook Sounds, and thank you for listening. We would love to hear what you would like to hear from us. Please contact us at notbornyesterdaypodcast@nextvillagesf.org.
Be well, stay strong, and remember, you weren't born yesterday.
I'm Lynn Wintergross.
And I'm Miriam Goodman.